Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, my dear beautiful girls? Inshallah, now I'm going to help you understand the lesson 1 in Unit 4 Social Changes. Of course, you're going to ask me, why did we skip Unit 3? I'm going to tell you. At the end of Unit 2, when we reached the end of the Umayyad Caliphate, we said that the Abbasids killed all of the Marwanids. Marwan II ibn Muhammad, he was killed in Egypt after the battle, after he fled to Egypt. And then they killed all the Marwanids and ended the Umayyad Caliphate, except for one prince who was called Abdurrahman al-Dakhil. Abdurrahman al-Dakhil was the last survival from the Umayyads. He fled or escaped to Al-Andalus, which is now Spain and Portugal. There, he started the Caliphate of Cordoba. The Caliphate of Cordoba was like an extension for the Umayyad Caliphate in the Middle East. All of Unit 3 is about this caliphate in Al-Andalus, the Cordoba, or the Caliphate of Cordoba. You can read it and try to understand what was happening at that time. But this unit has more details. It talks about the changes that happened in the Middle East until we reach the type of life that we are living today. And that's why, because we have similar events in Unit 3, similar to those which we studied in Unit 2, I skipped it because this unit is much more has more details related and very touching to our life today, and that's why we skipped that unit. You can read it in your free time. You can get a lot of information about the Cordoba Caliphate or the Caliphate of Cordoba. Now let us start this lesson, which is about the social changes that happened in the Middle East and how the Middle East started to change from the simple life of the past to the modern life that we live today. Let us read about the Industrial Revolution in Europe. Until the year 1800s, people lived and worked mostly on farms. When I say this, I mean they lived rural life. With the developments of new machinery and processes for manufacturing, people moved to cities to get jobs in factories. Again, this is known as urban life. This was known as an Industrial Revolution. The first Industrial Revolution took place in Great Britain between the years 1750 and the year 1830, about 1,000 years from the end of the Umayyad Caliphate and the start of the Abbasid Caliphate. So, only 1,000 years separate us separate the Umayyad Caliphate, in which the Muslims were very advanced, were very remarkable, and the beginning of the Industrial Revolution that made Europe better than the Muslim world. The economy of Britain changed from rural to urban. Rural life that depend on farming, urban life that depend on manufacturing and selling goods. These changes had moved to Europe and America, then further to other countries, including the Middle East. Here we have some examples for the machines that when they were firstly invented, they were like a turning point to the lives of people on earth. This machine was invented by Jethro Tull. What did he do? He invented this machine. It is called a seed drill, which helped farmers to plant seeds even in rows at the same depth. That was like a revolution in farming. It helped farmers to grow better and faster and wider and in bigger areas of land. Here, this machine is called a spinning jenny. That spinning jenny was a machine that could spin many threads and work it very fast. In the past, people used it to spin thread by hand. They could only spin one thread at a time, but that machine helped them to spin many threads and work it faster and faster than people. That machine is called the water-powered looms. These machines could weave cloth quickly and efficiently. So they used it to make thread here, change the cotton plant or even the hair of the animals into thread in this machine, and then take these threads and put it in this machine in order to change them into cloth. That is the main reason for the Industrial Revolution. The steam engine, which was invented by James Watt at the end of the 18th century. James Watt was a scientist. He invented this steam engine that used the power of the steam or the water vapor. That machine or that steam engine could provide power for all the machines in a factory, and that's why people started to have machines and factories, and that was the first and the main reason for the industrial revolution. Actually, that machine also is called the steam pump. Again, it's a pump used, powered by the power of steam or water vapor. It could pump water out of the flooded mines. This made it impossible to make deeper mine shafts and produce more coal. The reason for this, or the main importance use for this, to help people produce more coal. From coal, they got the power, or that was the main kind of fuel at that time before the oil was discovered. Here, the Middle East and the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution, it changed Europe faster than it changed the Middle East. Why? Because the Middle East at that time has no relation or direct contact to what was happening in Europe. Until about 1940, life in Saudi Arabia was more or less the same as it had been for hundreds of years. I told you again, there were no connections between the people in the Middle East and the people in Europe. People in the Middle East did not know what was happening in Europe. What about how was life like long ago? Since ancient times, traders had moved through the Middle East on their way to or from Europe, North Africa and South, Central and Southeast Asia. The trade routes crisscrossed the Middle East, and many cities in our region started as settlements along these routes. Do you remember when we told you that last year that most of the trade routes between the East and the West is in the Middle East? They supply travelers with food, accommodation, and pack animals such as horses and camels. The people who used to travel across the Middle East for trade between the East and the West used to stay on the way where the people who live in the Middle East to give them food, accommodation, and pack animals. People of the Middle East traded in frankincense and myrrh, silk, spices, and ivory, animals, skins, precious stones, and metals. These are or were the things that were like goods found in the Middle East. This was also time of human slavery. Of course, Alhamdulillah, this does not happen anymore, and even Islam forbidden and prohibited this slavery, this kind of trade in which people used to sell and buy other peoples as slaves and maids. And the slave trade brought many people through the Middle East too. That was how was life going on in the Middle East. Of course, the words in green means fragrant perfumes made from the gum of a certain trees. After the Industrial Revolution, there was a big need for any kind of fuel, better than coal. At the beginning, the kind of fuel that was used in the work of factories that helped machines work and the steam engine work was the coal. Later, oil was found, and oil was much better than coal. The Industrial Revolution created a huge demand for this oil because it was used as a fuel. In the year 1930s, oil was discovered in the Middle East. So oil was discovered in the Middle East in the 20th century. This discovery changed life in the Middle East greatly. That helped Saudi Arabia and all the Gulf countries to be richer than others. Here we have some pictures that show us the need for oil and how oil changed the Middle East. Here, these industries, even building, depend on oil industry. Modern building techniques allowed us to put in new modern buildings. How, of course, all this was a reason how life changed in the Middle East after the discovery of oil and after the Industrial Revolution. Also, oil industry required thousands of different forms of transport. So the government had to build highways, roads, and railroads. When we started to have more cars and more different forms of transport, that made the governments to build roads and highways. Oil also was a cheap fuel. With cheap fuel and the new roads, Saudi families started using cars of their own, private cars. Private cars, and that's why the Saudi families started to have private cars as there were highways, roads, and cheap fuel. Also, many jobs became available in oil industry. This brought wealth and silks and a lot of skills to Saudi people. So the Saudi Arabia started to be so well. They started to need يعني foreigners to work here because oil industry made many jobs to be available in Saudi Arabia with more money, and that's why people started to come from their countries to work here in Saudi Arabia. Also, the demand for specialized skills attracted many people from other countries. This is why a lot of foreigners are working here in Saudi Arabia. Again, because they demanded skills and specialized people to work in the jobs that became available because of the oil industry. That's how life in Saudi Arabia changed greatly from the style of life of the past, which was rural life, to the urban life of today. And that's why they started to own cars, to have foreigners working here, and so on. Finding and using water. Water is very scarce and precious in the Middle East because we said before that most of the Middle East is hot and dry. In order to live and work in the Middle East, people have to overcome the challenges of our very hot, dry climate. The Muslim world has developed some ingenious tools and technologies to lift water from rivers and other sources. This is how people used to lift water from rivers in the past. This is يعني a machine that was invented also in the old times, but this is a modern one that is used to lift water from rivers and canals up to the use of people. But that one was to use to work by hand. That one is an يعني it's a machine working, not by people. And inshallah, we are going to stop here. We are going to complete this lesson, inshallah, next week. Here we are going to stop for this week. Next week we are going to complete the lesson because this lesson is very long and has a lot of details. But after you understand the lesson very well, I'm going to help you summarize it, or summarize the main points and the important points of it in a worksheet or even in a PowerPoint presentation. But I want you to understand all the details of the lesson before we focus on the most important points. Thanks for being with me, and goodbye till we meet again.